There comes a time in every believer's life when the greatest act of faith you can demonstrate is not in what you do, but in what you choose to walk away from. Yes, I'm speaking about walking away, not from opportunities, not from challenges, but from people. People who carry a spirit that can keep you in bondage, stunt your growth, and block the blessings God has for you. The power of influence in our lives is undeniable. From the moment we are born, we are influenced by the environment, the people around us, and the circumstances in which we find ourselves. The relationships we nurture, the company we keep, and the voices we listen to play a pivotal role in shaping our thoughts, actions, and ultimately our destiny. Influence doesn't always come in loud, obvious ways. Sometimes it's subtle, creeping into our lives through daily interactions, behaviors, and attitudes that we adopt without even realizing it. We often hear the saying, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." This phrase holds a deep truth because our minds are like sponges, soaking in everything around us. The people we associate with, whether they intend to or not, mold the way we think, the decisions we make, and the values we adopt. If we surround ourselves with individuals who are negative, pessimistic, or whose actions are driven by fear, it's only a matter of time before we start to internalize those traits. Likewise, when we associate with those who are uplifting, optimistic, and driven by a purpose greater than themselves, the influence of others can also impact our belief systems. People around us have the ability to either strengthen our faith or weaken it. Those who are constantly doubting, criticizing, or living in unbelief can slowly pull us into a state of spiritual paralysis. On the other hand, being surrounded by those who encourage and challenge us to grow in our faith can lead to greater clarity, strength, and conviction in our own spiritual journey. The spirit of those we associate with either propels us toward our purpose or steers us away from it. Influence isn't just limited to our personal relationships. It extends to the media, the workplace, and society at large. The things we watch, read, and hear contribute to the inner workings of our mind. If we're constantly consuming content that promotes fear, anger, or division, we cannot expect our hearts to be filled with peace and understanding. But when we expose ourselves to positive influences, words of encouragement, wisdom, and truth, we open our hearts and minds to new possibilities and growth. We must be discerning about the influences we allow into our lives, for the direction of our future can be shaped by the people we choose to associate with. Whether we realize it or not, the power of influence is constantly at work, and we are the ones who have the responsibility to guard our hearts and minds from toxic relationships. The spirit of manipulation is one of the most subtle and dangerous forces that can infiltrate our lives. It doesn't announce itself boldly or act in ways that are immediately obvious. Instead, it often comes disguised as concern, care, or even love, making it difficult to recognize. Manipulation is a quiet force that seeks to control, dictate, and influence others in ways that are self-serving to the manipulator. This spirit works by subtly shifting the balance of power in a relationship, often making one person feel indebted, trapped, or obligated to meet the demands or expectations of another, regardless of the cost. One of the primary tactics of manipulation is emotional exploitation. The manipulator may use guilt, shame, or fear to make you feel as though you owe them something, even when there is no reason for you to feel that way. They may make you feel responsible for their emotions or circumstances, using phrases like, "After all I've done for you," or "I can't believe you would let me down like this." These tactics are designed to make you feel trapped in a cycle of obligation and guilt, to the point where you begin to doubt your own needs, desires, or boundaries. You start to believe that your worth is tied to how much you can give or how well you can meet their needs, even if it comes at the expense of your own well-being. Another key strategy of manipulation is the use of fear. A manipulative person may create a sense of urgency, making you believe that something terrible will happen if you don't comply with their wishes. They may exaggerate consequences, exaggerate their problems, or make you feel responsible for their outcomes. The goal is to create a sense of insecurity within you, making you feel like you are walking on eggshells, constantly trying to please them or avoid their anger. This kind of fear-based manipulation often leaves you feeling powerless and overwhelmed, as though you can never escape their control. Furthermore, manipulation often operates under the guise of love, friendship, or care. The manipulator will often play the role of the victim, seeking sympathy and attention. They may convince you that their needs must come first, that their problems are so immense that only you can help them, and that any failure to do so is a personal betrayal. This dynamic can lead you to feel as though you are not allowed to say no, to put up boundaries, or to prioritize your own life and needs. It is the perfect setup for controlling someone through emotional dependence, making them feel as though they cannot function without the manipulator's approval or support. Understanding how the spirit of manipulation works is the first step in breaking free from its grip. Recognizing that manipulation thrives on your insecurities, fears, and sense of guilt is key to resisting it. Once you can see these tactics at play, you gain the power to regain control over your own emotions, decisions, and relationships. It's essential to develop a discerning spirit, one that knows when to say no, when to protect your boundaries, and when to walk away from relationships that seek to control and dominate you. Discernment in relationships is not just a skill, it is a necessity for anyone who desires to grow, flourish, and walk in the destiny God has prepared for them. Not all relationships are meant to last, and not all relationships are healthy. Some are designed to sharpen you, strengthen you, and help you reach your potential, while others are there to hinder your progress, drain your energy, and keep you stuck in a cycle of stagnation. The ability to discern the nature of the relationships in your life is crucial to your spiritual, emotional, and personal well-being. To begin with, discernment requires self-awareness. You must first be clear about your values, goals, and purpose in life. When you are grounded in your own identity and understanding of who you are in God, it becomes much easier to recognize when a relationship is not serving your highest good. People who respect your values and encourage you to grow in your purpose are the ones who align with your calling. On the other hand, those who consistently pull you away from your values, who manipulate or belittle your ambitions, are likely to be toxic influences in your life. An unhealthy relationship often leaves you feeling drained and unsettled. It's not always immediate, but over time you may begin to feel exhausted after interactions, as if a part of you is being siphoned away. These relationships tend to be one-sided, where one person gives and the other takes without any real reciprocity. It's important to recognize when the balance is tipped in favor of one person's needs at the expense of the other. The more wealth you have, the more you will be deteriorated. It's often linked to pain. A healthy relationship should empower you, not deplete you. It should leave you feeling encouraged and supported, not burdened or exhausted. Another sign of an unhealthy relationship is when there is a consistent lack of respect for your boundaries. Boundaries are essential for personal growth, and anyone who consistently disregards your boundaries is showing a lack of respect for your well-being. Whether it's emotional, physical, or spiritual boundaries, those who do not honor these limits are toxic to your growth. They may make you feel guilty for needing space, for wanting time to yourself, or for setting limits on the level of access they have to your life. A person who truly values you will understand and respect your need for boundaries as a way to protect your peace and ensure your growth. Toxic relationships often involve manipulation, control, or even subtle forms of abuse. When someone makes you feel small, unworthy, or constantly second-guessing your own thoughts and actions, it's a clear indication that the relationship is unhealthy. These individuals may use tactics like guilt-tripping, belittling, or playing on your emotions to get what they want. The constant undermining of your confidence and self-worth is not a reflection of you, but of their need to control or dominate. Recognizing these patterns is critical to maintaining your own mental and emotional health. Discernment also involves listening to your inner voice, your intuition. God often speaks to us through the quiet whispers of our hearts, warning us when something isn't right. Trusting your gut feeling is often a more accurate guide than rationalizing or making excuses for unhealthy behaviors. If something feels off, it probably is. It's important to be willing to take a step back, assess the situation, and make the necessary changes, even if it means walking away from a relationship that no longer serves. Discernment helps you filter out the toxic relationships that hinder your growth and keep you connected to the ones that will help you soar. God has a plan for your life, and some relationships, as painful as it may be to admit, are not part of that plan. Learning to recognize when a relationship is unhealthy is not about judgment or condemnation. It's about protecting your peace, nurturing your potential, and making room for the relationships that will help you grow into the person you are meant to be. Freedom through separation is a concept that may seem difficult to understand, especially when emotions and attachments are involved. However, there are times in life when the greatest gift you can give yourself is the freedom that comes from walking away from relationships, environments, or situations that no longer serve your purpose. Separation is not a form of defeat. It is a courageous step towards reclaiming your peace, your direction, and ultimately, your destiny. The act of walking away is often misunderstood as abandonment, but in reality it is an act of preservation, preserving your mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. In many cases, we find ourselves entangled in relationships that have become draining, toxic, or burdensome. These relationships may have once been a source of joy or fulfillment, but over time they have evolved into something that holds us back from the life we are meant to live. The challenge lies in recognizing when it is no longer healthy to remain in these relationships. Whether it's a friendship, a family dynamic, or even a professional relationship, the fear of letting go can keep us stuck, unable to move forward. But sometimes, the only way to move toward healing, growth, and God's plan for our lives is to separate ourselves from those influences. When we stay in relationships that drain us, that manipulate us, or that demand more than we can give, we slowly begin to lose ourselves. Our peace is compromised, and our sense of purpose becomes blurred. We start to doubt ourselves, second-guess our decisions, and wonder if we are on the right path. This is the consequence of remaining attached to something or someone that is not aligned with our highest good. But when we make the bold decision to separate, we begin to reclaim our clarity, our joy, and our strength. Separation provides the necessary space to reconnect with who we are, who God has created us to be, and where He is calling us to go. Freedom through separation also means letting go of the fear of what others might think. Often we hesitate to walk away because we are worried about how it will affect the other person or what others will say. We might fear being misunderstood or seen as selfish. But true freedom is found when we realize that we are not responsible for the choices or feelings of others, especially when their influence has become negative or destructive in our lives. God has a unique plan for each of us, and that plan often requires us to step away from situations or people that prevent us from fulfilling our calling. Sometimes separation can be a temporary measure. In some cases, God may call us to take a step back from certain relationships to allow time for healing or reconciliation. But there are also times when separation is permanent, when walking away is the only way to preserve your peace and your purpose. It is important to recognize that walking away is not an act of rejection, but a necessary act of self-preservation. When you let go of relationships or situations that drain you, you create room for healthier, more fulfilling connections to come into your life. Embracing freedom through separation is a powerful reminder that you are not bound by anyone else's expectations, opinions, or manipulations. You are free to follow God's guidance and to align yourself with relationships that build you up, support your growth, and encourage you to walk in the fullness of your purpose. God does not want you to live in bondage, emotional or otherwise. Separation is sometimes the very act that will propel you into the new season He has prepared for you. Spiritual independence is a powerful concept that speaks to the freedom we must cultivate in order to walk fully in the destiny that God has for us. It's not just about physical or emotional independence. It's about becoming free from the spiritual chains that hold us back, often manifested through toxic relationships and influences. Toxic people, whether knowingly or unknowingly, can place spiritual chains upon us that hinder our growth, limit our potential, and distract us from the path God has ordained for our lives. To truly walk in our destiny, we must be able to recognize these chains and break free from them. Spiritual chains often take the form of manipulation, control, and negative influence. Toxic people, especially those who operate from a place of selfishness or insecurity, may try to pull us away from our true purpose. They may encourage doubt, spread negativity, or impose their limited beliefs on us, which can subtly distort our vision of God's will for our lives. These chains bind our spiritual minds, causing us to question our own worth, our abilities, and our relationship with God. When we are surrounded by these influences, we can easily become spiritually stagnant, unable to move forward in our calling. In order to walk in our divine destiny, we must be free from these spiritual shackles. We must come to a place where we can confidently recognize toxic relationships that seek to undermine our spiritual health and growth. This freedom comes through discernment, understanding the motives and actions of others, and knowing when to protect our spiritual space. God calls us to walk in freedom, not in bondage to other people's fears, insecurities, or manipulation. As long as we are spiritually bound to toxic influences, we cannot fully embrace the life and purpose God has planned for us. Spiritual independence also involves learning how to trust God's voice over the opinions of others. Many toxic people are driven by fear, jealousy, or a desire to control others. They may not understand or support your dreams, your calling, or the path that God has set before you. This can cause confusion and hinder your ability to hear the voice of God clearly. But when you are spiritually independent, you learn to tune out the distractions and focus on God's guidance. You are no longer swayed by the opinions or judgments of others, but are rooted in the truth of God's word and His plan for your life. Breaking free from the spiritual chains of toxic people is not always easy. It requires courage, discernment, and often the painful decision to let go of relationships that no longer serve you. However, this process is necessary for your spiritual growth and for walking in the fullness of your destiny. You cannot walk freely if you are still shackled by the spiritual influence of those who try to control, manipulate, or belittle you. To be spiritually independent means to stand firm in your faith, to walk in confidence, and to pursue God's purpose for your life without being held back by toxic forces. Spiritual independence empowers you to be the person God created you to be. It frees you to make decisions based on your faith, not on the fear or manipulation of others. As you break free from the spiritual chains of toxic people, you align yourself with the divine calling on your life, and you open yourself to the blessings and opportunities God has prepared for you. This independence is not about isolation, but about strength and clarity of purpose as you choose to follow God's leading above all else. Embracing new seasons is an essential part of spiritual growth and personal development. As God continues to unfold His plan for your life, you will inevitably face moments where the past must be let go of in order to embrace the future He has in store for you. One of the most difficult aspects of moving into a new season is recognizing that in order to step into the new, you must be willing to leave behind the wrong relationships and environments that have held you back. These relationships may have been a source of comfort, familiarity, or even validation in the past, but they are not meant to travel with you into the next chapter of your life. God's plan for your life is always forward moving. And sometimes that requires shedding old attachments that no longer align with your purpose. Holding on to the wrong people can keep you tethered to past experiences, old mindsets, or even negative cycles that hinder your spiritual and personal growth. To walk in the newness God has for you, you must be willing to let go of what is no longer contributing to your progress. While it can be painful to leave behind relationships, especially when they've been a part of your life for a long time, the process of separation is often necessary for your elevation. The reality is the people we surround ourselves with greatly influence the trajectory of our lives. In the same way that seasons change in the natural world, so too do the seasons in our spiritual lives. There are times when God is calling you to step into a new season of purpose, growth, and blessings. But in order to fully embrace that new season, you must leave behind relationships and influences that are tied to your past. These wrong relationships can weigh you down, preventing you from stepping into the fullness of what God has prepared for you. When you step into a new season, you must be open to new opportunities, new people, and new ways of thinking. God often brings new relationships into your life that will help propel you forward. Relationships that are aligned with His will for you. Relationships that encourage you to grow, strengthen your faith, and support your divine calling. Embracing a new season means being open to change, trusting that God's timing and plans are greater than your own, and letting go of what no longer serves you. In many cases, the new season requires a fresh mindset, a mindset that is no longer hindered by the past. To truly embrace what God has for you, you must stop looking back at what you've left behind. You cannot move forward if you keep dwelling on the past or clinging to relationships that no longer serve your growth. It's important to trust that God's purpose for your life is always bigger and better than anything you've experienced before. The new season He is preparing for you is filled with hope, promise, and opportunities for growth. But it will require you to trust Him fully, release the past, and walk confidently into the future He is calling you to. Embracing a new season also means understanding that change can be uncomfortable. Stepping away from people and relationships that you once thought were essential to your life can feel like a loss, but in reality, it is a gain. God's purpose for your life will never be hindered by your obedience to Him, even if it means walking away from what is familiar. As you embrace the new season, you will find that God replaces the old with something far greater. Relationships, opportunities, and experiences that are designed to propel you into your destiny. Leaving behind the wrong relationships is an act of faith. It is trusting that God knows what is best for you and that the future He has for you is far better than anything you've left behind. Embracing new seasons requires a willingness to let go and a belief that God is always working things together for your good. In conclusion, the journey you are on is not merely about surviving the storms of life, but about embracing the divine purpose that God has uniquely designed for you. The relationships you keep, the environments you inhabit, and the people you associate with all play a vital role in shaping your destiny. If you want to walk in the fullness of your calling, you must recognize the necessity of walking away from those who seek to keep you bound in negativity, manipulation, and spiritual chains. God has greater plans for you. Plans that will only be realized when you free yourself from the distractions and toxic influences that hold you back. Understand this: the right relationships, the ones aligned with your divine purpose, will be there to support you, to build you up, and to help you walk in the fullness of God's will. Freedom comes when you learn to trust God's timing, His wisdom, and His love. He will not lead you into a new season without preparing you for it. But to step into that new season, you must be willing to leave behind the past, to let go of what no longer serves you, and to embrace the future with boldness and faith. the people you are meant to meet, the opportunities you are destined to experience, and the blessings you are to receive all await you in the new season. So rise up with confidence, understanding that separation from the wrong relationships is not a loss. It is a gateway to the purpose, peace, and power that God has destined for your life. Trust Him, embrace the new, and walk boldly into the future He has for you.